Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm really excited because I'm going to be making a video about sewing a costume, and I haven't made a costume in a really long time. Back when I used to cosplay, I never got very excited about Halloween. I always cared more about wearing my costumes to conventions or photo shoots instead. But this year I am super excited for Halloween and I decided that I want to be Mario. Now I know what you're thinking. Sarah, Mario is a dude, and that's true, but it also hasn't stopped me from cosplaying certain characters in the past. This video is going to be about me making a female version of Mario. Just think about that Bowsette meme that went around, but instead of Bowser being a sexy hot single in your area, it's Mario. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. So here's a quick sketch of what I'm going for with this costume. So I still had some blue fabric from when I created an Alice dress many years ago. You might recognize this from the game Alice Madness Returns. Awesome game, by the way. I didn't have enough fabric to make a whole new costume from scratch, so I'm going to use the skirt from this dress in my design. My cat Lucy helped me seam rip the skirt away from the bodice, and then I cut the lace trim off the bottom of the dress. There is something really satisfying about recycling old projects. I feel like this costume has been sitting in my closet for 5 years unused, and I'm really excited to turn it into something that will actually see sunlight again. I also honestly can't wait to show everyone at my work how much of a nerd I am. My first goal is going to be finishing the skirt. Luckily, my size hasn't changed in the last 5 years, so I don't need to make any alterations to the waist. Here I cut out a waistband that was 29 by 3 inches. If you're making one for yourself, you'll want the length to be your waist measurement plus about 1 inch for seam allowance. A 3-inch waist piece is going to give me a waistband that is about 1 inch wide. Anyways, I ironed an identical piece of interfacing to the inside of my fabric. This is going to make my waistband more sturdy and prevent the fabric from trying to roll or fold in on itself. I ironed the fabric over about 5/8 of an inch on both sides. Then I folded the piece in half long ways and ironed it again. Now I need to attach the waistband to my skirt. I pinned the waistband along the top of my skirt with right sides facing each other, so I'm going to go ahead and stitch that in place. I'm using the 5/8 of an inch guide on my machine to sew along the waistband where I had ironed it earlier. I made my waistband a little longer than my waist by 4 inches because I'm one of those super paranoid sewers that thinks they're always going to make something too small or end up not having enough fabric. To finish the waistband, I'm going to use a slip stitch on the inside of the skirt. I'm tucking the raw edge of the fabric up and underneath the waistband and then hand stitching it in place. These stitches only go through the seam allowance, so they're not visible from the outside of the skirt. This is a really great way to finish seams because it prevents the fabric from fraying. Okay, so the waistband is good for now. I'm going to sew up the back of the skirt, except for about 7 inches at the top. This is where I'm going to attach my zipper. I've got a 14-inch invisible zipper for this project. I could have bought a shorter one, but I'm trying to get through my zipper stash. Here's a quick look at all the tools my sewing machine holds. There's a zipper foot hiding in there somewhere. After a quick search for my zipper foot, I sewed the zipper onto my skirt. Okay, so I have this petticoat that I want to wear with the skirt, but right now I think that the skirt is too long, so I'm going to try it on and see how it looks. So this is what we're working with. You definitely cannot see the petticoat, and I want it to just kind of peek out like this, so I think I'm going to have to chop off like 2 to 2.5 inches and then do a hem from there. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm laying the skirt on the floor and then measuring about 2.5 inches all the way along the bottom. I was lazy and just measured it on one side with the fabric folded in half and then just cut along my marker lines. I'm hemming the skirt by rolling the hem over twice to hide the raw edge. I only got about halfway through pinning my skirt before I completely ran out of pins, which is a little worrisome because I know that I have more than this, and I'm assuming that they're scattered across my floor somewhere now. Okay, so I think that we overdid it on the pins a little bit, but we're already committed, so I'm gonna go ahead and just sew that. I ended up sewing half the hem at a time. I had to go back with the same pins and pin the other side to finish the bottom of the skirt. When you're sewing curves like this, the hem will naturally want to go straight instead of curving, which is why it's so hard to sew without using any pins. Also, I just want to point out that Lucy has been hogging my sewing chair all day, and I've pretty much just been sitting on her. But she knows that she's so cute and I won't move her. I'd like to take this moment to point out how bad that zipper alignment is. Honestly, since it's a costume, it's not a huge deal, but I probably should have tried a little bit harder to line that up. Here's to hoping that nobody's looking that closely at the back of my skirt. Now it is time to move on to the top of this overall dress. I've cut out 2 rectangle pieces from my blue fabric that are 10 by 11 inches. I've also got 2 long strap pieces that are about 34 by 4 inches. I'm ironing on fusible interfacing to one of my 10 by 11 inch rectangles. The interfacing will add a little bit of stiffness to the fabric and prevent it from losing its shape. I placed the 2 rectangles facing right sides together and sewed them like this. I flipped the fabric right side out and used some scissors to help push out the corners. Be very careful not to cut your fabric if you use scissors for this part. I'm going to top stitch around the edges to make the fabric lay flat and then use my serger to finish the raw edge at the bottom. So now I have this rectangle piece and I need to attach it to my skirt. I used the zipper in the back as a guide to make sure the rectangle was pinned at the center, but on the front side. I'm sewing this in place with the front of the skirt facing up so that I can keep all of the stitches straight on the outside of my fabric. For the strap, I'm folding it in half long ways and sewing it with about 1/2 inch of seam allowance. I flipped the strap right side out and then top stitched along both of the long edges. I repeated this same process to create a second strap. I'm attaching the straps to the top of my rectangle piece just like this. I'm sewing them on with the outside of the dress facing up so that I can make sure the stitches are straight and blend in with my top stitching. I tried on the overall dress and decided I liked the look of the crisscross straps in the back. I pinned the straps to the back of the dress and adjusted the length and position until I was happy with them. That zipper is literally going to haunt me forever. Then I sewed the straps to the back of the skirt. Mario has these 2 big yellow buttons on his overalls, so I found these buttons at the fabric store and thought they were perfect for this. I'm hand stitching them on as decorative non-functioning buttons. Okay, so this overall dress is done, but I still need to make a red shirt. My plan for this part of the costume is to make a turtleneck with long balloon sleeves. I didn't film cutting out the fabric since it was getting kind of late and I was really excited to finish the costume. I also didn't know if I could explain my lazy pattern making process that well, and I was debating on whether or not I even had enough fabric to make the shirt, but it turns out I did, so that's great. Here I have the front and back pieces to start with. I'm going to sew these together with the right sides facing each other at the shoulders and the side seams, just like this. Next, I cut out 2 sleeve pieces and 2 sleeve cuffs. I wish I could have made the sleeves a little bit wider so that they would look more poofy, but this was literally all the fabric that I had left. The cuffs will need to be a little bit longer than your wrist measurement, with about 1 inch added for seam allowance. For the sleeve, I'm folding it in half and sewing up the side with a straight stitch. Once I had that sewn, I changed my machine stitch length to the longest setting and sewed a basting stitch along the bottom edge of my sleeve. I sewed this close to the edge of the fabric so that it would be hidden in my seam allowance when I attach the cuff later. By pulling on one side of the thread, I can gather down the fabric and create this gathered puffy sleeve look. I've seen people use 2 rows of basting stitches to gather fabric instead of just 1, and I think that would definitely hold the fabric in place better. So I gathered that down to about the width of my sleeve cuff, which is what I need to work on now. I'm folding the cuff piece in half and sewing it with a zigzag stitch. Then I'm going to fold the piece in half again and sew this into a little circle with a straight stitch. Now that I have my cuff finished, I'm going to pin it to the gathered side of my sleeve. I made sure to have the fabric facing right sides together for this step. I'm sewing the cuff to my sleeve using a zigzag stitch. A zigzag stitch will allow the fabric to keep some of its stretch, that way the cuff can fit over my hand. Here you can see I have one of the sleeves done. I like to try it on before I attach it to the shirt just to make sure that it's a good length, and it's looking good to me. With my sleeve right side out and my shirt inside out, I pinned the sleeve to the open armhole. I sewed the sleeve on with a straight stitch and repeated the same process for the other sleeve. I wanted to finish the shirt by adding a turtleneck detail. I cut out this piece of fabric that was a little longer than my neck measurement and sewed it in half with a zigzag stitch, just like I did with the cuff piece earlier. So I just finished sewing this, and it's only just now occurring to me that there's absolutely no way this thing is going over my head. Like, there's no way. So I'm gonna have to figure something else out to get the shirt over my head. So I thought about this for a while and finally decided that I was gonna cut a small slit down the back of my shirt. I opened up the turtleneck piece again and I'm sewing it around the open neckline. So the last thing that I need to do is fix this little hole that I cut in the back so I could fit it over my head, and then also hem the bottom of the shirt. So I'm gonna go ahead and do both of those things. I'm finishing the bottom of the shirt by rolling the hem over twice to hide the raw edges. This will be tucked into my overall dress, but I just wanted to have a nice clean finish. I hemmed the slit that I'd cut in the back of the shirt and added a button closure to it. I had to make a last-minute stop at the fabric store today to grab a red button for this because I didn't initially anticipate having it in my design. I hand-stitched the button to one side of the opening and then sewed a little fabric loop to the other side. Okay guys, it's time for the big reveal. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm super excited to have this costume now and I can't wait to wear it on Halloween. As usual, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more sewing videos like this in the future. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!